I gave you half.
Half and half. Half whiskey, half and half.
Cream.
That sounds so gross. Although Randall was talking about soda and milk earlier,
milk
so
whiskey and half
oh, that
is the
sounds
big boy version.
so nasty. Ah,
Did you guys ever take
guess that
shots of
works.
half and half at restaurants?
Nah.
of half and half, no.
Like, yeah, when they'd have that little like bowl
the
of
cups.
them.
No.
My sisters and I would just like do shots of it.
Me and my cousin would shake them and be like, "It's gonna turn into butter. if we churn it long enough, it'll be butter."
Little French vanilla, little Irish cream. Just kind of go around the world.
Jet setting, John setting. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode number 38, and my name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery,
Hey, everybody.
DJ Mandolini,
Yo.
and John Hines.
Hi there.
We're back in full force yet again, and back as always to talk about some video games.
Heck yeah.
I don't know why we even say that, because we just always talk about video games. But,
We don't say it.
yeah, I don't know why I always say that. I guess I should be clear, but yeah, we're gonna kick the ball over to John here, who's still playing Ashen, which I think he talked about a few weeks ago on the podcast. But we got kind of more into like the overworld and like the building of like your town, but we didn't get a ton into like the dungeon mechanics and whatnot. But I know you're still super sucked into this game, so
Yeah.
why don't you take it away?
So I played a little bit with you over, and I was showing you like different mechanics, and there were some things that I just didn't point out that were kind of integral to the experience. And one of those, especially in the dungeons, is you have a lantern, and you can upgrade that lantern a couple different times to increase its brightness, but you will be carrying that lantern in your offhand, usually in these dungeons, and that's how you can, figure out if there are more enemies around a corner or just the general layout of the platforms that you're going around.
Yeah, and the dungeon that you were in, at least when I was over, I can't remember if you were playing it here or at your place, but like it was super dark. Like you needed to bust out the lantern at times.
So you could easily like fall to your death or just be like taken by surprise by like a bunch of enemies.
Which means you can't hold your shield, I'm assuming, in that
Exactly.
Correct. Yes. That's why I was like, you got to talk about that on the podcast, because I feel like that's like a crucial mechanic of these dungeons. Because at least in this particular dungeon, I was like, that's a really cool, like puzzle, not puzzles per se, but like you kind of have to like logically solve your way through these dungeons. So
Be a little more deliberate.
There was a specific video that I posted that we put on our Twitter feed that was like me in one of the later dungeons, and like it was at a point where you get a 1 KO basically before like you like do a hard death, and you need to reset at one of the ritual stones. And I had, my partner, the AI partner who was with me, had also been KO'd at that point. And like, I really wasn't feeling like I was going to restart the dungeon over. So like I get to an area and like there's just a large hulking enemy, and I'm like, I do not have like the wherewithal to put up with this without like having a shield.
Right.
So I just kind of like baited it a little bit, like have him go down the stairs to an area in the dungeon that I know had some light coming down into the center of the room.
Yeah.
So like there's this video that we have where I'm just like slowly inching backwards down the stairs until I get him into an open area with enough light that I can put my lantern away and kind of fight with him in the shadows in an area that I had already cleared.
And you can even set the lantern on the ground, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Cool.
So you can like
That's a
place
big
it.
deal.
Okay, I'm in this room. Let me set it down and kind of explore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I know I said I played like maybe the first little chunk of this game, like 30 minutes or so, and didn't quite grab me. But like once I saw you playing this dungeon, I was like, okay, there's some like a little more level design to this as opposed to something like Dark Souls, which again is just not for me. But it's like this methodical, like learning the patterns of the enemies. And I think there's some of this in Ashen based on what you're saying, but like there's a little more to it than that. There's a little more, I don't know. And I do just like that low, like polygonal art style.
Yeah.
I just really like it a lot. So
So I've gotten to the point in the game where I am at the final boss. I've not beaten the final boss. I've beaten the first form of the final boss. And then the second form has an attack that can automatically kill you if it lands.
Oof.
So I decided to put down the game in that respect, but like pick up more of the exploration. And like I was kind of doing it as a like showcase to Kevin, be like, oh, here's another mechanic, here's another area.
Yeah.
This is where I really like. But I went to an area of a map that like I kind of remembered there being an area that I was maybe a little too weak to go into. And since I was the end of the game and I was fully equipped and had like as strong as I could possibly be, I went into this area and it was just a fully optional dungeon. Like it didn't have anything, like it had a bunch of like gold or scoria at the end of the dungeon, but there wasn't anything that was necessary. Like I didn't need to complete it, but it was just this fun side area that was like a completely optional dungeon.
I love stuff like that.
It was just a great touch.
Oh, yeah.
There's a bunch of that still that night. I'm probably going to like pick this game back up and maybe even like start the game over without having technically beaten it.
Nice.
But like I just think that it's a great world to like inhabit, and I think that it's really hits the things that I like the most about Dark Souls and kind of like distills it into an experience that doesn't have any of the stuff that like is kind of what I have problems with in the genre.
Yeah, it seems like it from what you've shown me and what we've talked about, and from the tiny little bit I've played, even though it didn't grab me right away, it definitely seems like it pulls back on a lot of those elements that, at least again for me, are frustrating with something like Dark Souls. It does still have like some of the combat has that like little more slow, deliberate pacing to it. I'm sure it depends on what weapon you're using and stuff, but like almost like a little bit of that like Dark Souls, but even like Monster Hunter feel. Not quite as delayed as some of those weapons, but like that really slow, like you're timing your attacks. You're really having to think like, okay, I'm going to press X to attack, and that's going to take a second or two to register. It's a little more of that juggling, which I do prefer my action RPGs or whatever to have a little more immediacy to the combat. But yeah, after especially showing that lantern and shield juggling in the dungeons, that to me opened up a lot of possibilities for like, okay, these guys are thinking about level design and not just about the combat and about the world design. Like they're really thinking about how are we puzzling these dungeons together, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very deliberate, and I think it's very well crafted. Like I haven't had a 3D dungeon experience as like, I don't know, perfectly condensed as I have in this game.
Nice.
And how big are the dungeons? I obviously you just said perfectly condensed. So are they on the smaller side and just well crafted, or are they like comparable to like a Zelda dungeon?
I remember there's a point in the second dungeon that I got to what I was 100% sure was going to be like the last area before the boss, because I'd taken so many tries to get to that point, and I was like, oh, this is just gonna be the final gauntlet, and then I'm gonna be home free. And then I like slowly like chipped away at that, did a good job of luring some enemies out so that I could take them down one by one, as opposed to being swarmed by like 24 of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I finally finished that, and I had like used up a bunch of my health items. And then there was like twice the length of the dungeon after that. And I was just like, good Lord, I can't. Like it kind of snowballs to that point. Like the third dungeon is kind of like that as well. There's only like,
are there save points within the dungeons, or do you have to? Okay,
some of them are.
That's nice.
Which is very nice in the second. Actually, no, they have them, and they have them like right before the boss area too.
Perfect. Okay.
So like, and you can do like kind of a soft save. Like, if you don't like sit down at the ritual stone, the enemies won't respawn. But if you just enter, like, and you can walk into like the area of effect of the ritual stone, and it'll refill your like crimson gourds, which are your Estus flasks in this game.
Okay.
And it'll refill your health. But yeah, like you can't access the like ritual stone and warp to another place without resetting all the enemies.
Right.
Okay, because this is something that's still sitting on my Xbox, or maybe I can't remember if I uninstalled it or not, but it's available via the Xbox Game Pass. And after seeing again that mechanic of the dungeons, I'm like, okay, maybe I wrote this game off a little too quickly, which I am definitely one to do. But there's just so many games to play, it's easy to just pick, okay, this isn't grabbing me right away. there's some games I boot up and within 2 minutes they grab me. So like Downwell or something, it's like I'm immediately just like, I love this game.
Right.
Yeah.
Where like Ashen, I played for 30 minutes or an hour. Okay, it didn't grab me. Let's see what else is on Game Pass. There's 200 other games on here. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to go back and give this one a little bit more of a fair shake because I'm liking what you're saying, John.
Yeah.
I know there's always a second character in Ashen with you. Can someone jump in like a co-op scenario and take over that second character on your file?
I don't know if you can do that locally. I know that there is online multiplayer and it is in that co-op parameter, but I also have never. I had it turned on the entire time that I was playing on the Switch.
Yeah,
and I never. At least I don't know. Maybe one of those times it was controlled by another person, but it
doesn't tell you.
It may not tell you, or it may not have even happened to me.
Sure.
But you can always have an AI companion with you, or you can turn that off.
Okay.
There's also after you get to, I think, halfway through the game, you unlock the Children of Cisna mode, which is just a hard mode. And I think this game is already plenty hard. So I haven't seen what that one does, but I know that there's already some like base restrictions that you can do, like turning off AI helpers to increase the difficulty of the normal level.
Okay, cool. Did you have anything more to add on Ashen, or just that you're still enjoying it?
Yeah, and I'm probably going to be playing it again for years to come.
Nice.
Is there much left for you to do besides the final boss?
I'm just exploring. Like, I think that there's just enough nooks and crannies for me to go around and hunting, and maybe I'll find another dungeon. Maybe I'll just find an extra room that has a little feather in it.
It's a beautiful world, no doubt. So like if you're able to get grabbed by the mechanics that the game has on offer, I feel like I could definitely see getting sucked into this one. So
right.
But yeah, just moving from one game to another with no connection at all. I've been playing a little bit of a game called Gris or Gris, maybe. It's spelled Gris. It's from a Spanish development studio called Nomado, if I'm not mistaken. I might be pronouncing that wrong a little bit, but
Tomato Nomado.
Let's call the whole thing off. But yeah, so I've been playing I'm just gonna call it Gris from here forward.
Yes,
and this is like a really like stylish puzzle, side-scrolling puzzle platformer. With the puzzle platforming is very minimal for the most part. I mean, there's a few jumps you got to stick, or you essentially have one move that you can like turn into like kind of a square. It's almost like essentially a ground pound that you can sometimes like break through some walls, or maybe break like there'll be like a cluster of pots on the ground that you break, and then there's like some little red birds will fly out of there that will give you like a second, like not a double jump, but it'll launch you up like super high, because you do get a double jump eventually as well. But essentially, I mean, it's really straightforward puzzle platforming with some light exploration. I'm not really going to have too much to say about this game, other than I'll just say, like, if you glance over it and see a trailer, if the artwork compels you even at all, I would just say it's worth playing. I mean, the game is just beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of the prettiest video games I think I've ever seen. Like,
ever, yeah.
Seriously.
Without question. Yeah, I mean, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just it does control very well. Like it looks like one of those games that might have a little bit more of that like cinematic platformer feel to it, because it's so beautiful, where it's like these deliberate, like almost like delayed inputs and stuff. But it's very precise. Like when I hit jump, I jump. There's a couple times I hit a snag because it isn't like this Celeste style platformer where it's like pixel perfect inputs and stuff like that. But for the most part, you're just kind of exploring around the world, and you do get like the ability to swim underwater at some point, but mostly you're just kind of like coming across some set pieces here and there. Like one of the set pieces was like, I felt like, oh, there's like this kind of climactic scene, and I'm like, I just got this swimming ability, and now I'm like swimming, and it doesn't really feel like. I mean, I probably could have died, maybe, but I don't know if I could have for sure. But I'm just kind of like swimming past these eels, and like these two eels are chasing me, and like right when they're about to like chomp down on me, I can like hit A to do like a burst, ahead, and like But it's like, did I hit all those perfectly, or did it just kind of usher me through this cutscene? I don't really know. I do think you can potentially maybe die or something, but But it doesn't matter to me. In all honesty, I'd almost prefer not to be able to die, because it really is just like this exploratory experience that you're just kind of soaking in the artwork. Like, it's just like very watercolory.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of like cute little characters. Like there's this one little guy that like this little apple tree character that would follow me around, and I'd have to like knock these apples off the tree for them to collect. And then as they collected them, they would like then open up like when I got enough of them, it'd like open up a path for me or something. And it's just a beautiful game to see in motion. Again, I can't say there's like a ton of gameplay. I mean, it's clever enough. It's these just light puzzle design, but it's nothing that's going to blow your mind. I don't feel like I'm like solving some crazy puzzles in my head or anything like that.
Is this one Game Pass, or is this on Switch that you're playing it?
It actually just got added to Game Pass on PC, Xbox Game Pass on PC only, but I'm actually playing it on the Switch. I picked it up a while ago.
Okay.
It's another game from Devolver Digital, although I would say, like, a lot of their games, I won't say all of them, but they do tend to have, like, stuff like Enter the Gungeon or Katana Zero or stuff that has, like, a little more of, like, a violent tinge
edgy,
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this game has essentially none of that, at least what I've played so far. I mean, there's some moments that are, like, maybe a little bit, like, scary isn't the right word, but a little bit like there's this like bird, this like giant bird that appears at one point in the game, and you have to kind of like, it just kind of startling, I guess.
Yeah, a little spooky.
But it'll like, spooky, or it's a little jarring, but then you'll have to like use like the bird will like kind of scream and like as if it were attacking you, but you're really just using its like gust of breath to like make a further jump than you would have been able to make otherwise. Okay. So again, like I don't even know if that bird can harm you in any way. I really don't know. But yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun with this game. And again, I would just say it's as simple as, if the art style compels you, if you watch a trailer or even just see a screenshot, and if you're like, man, this looks beautiful, just pick it up. It's worth checking out. It controls nice and tight. You're not asked to do anything particularly demanding on the platforming front, but it plays very well, and it's just a beautiful experience. So I'm excited to get to the end, but I would guess I'm about halfway through. I wouldn't think it's a super long experience, maybe 3, 4, 5 hours at the most.
Sounds great.
I'm about a couple hours in, and I'm just looking forward to playing more and experiencing more of what this game, and the music, just everything about the presentation is just absolutely top notch.
Yeah.
So,
man.
Yeah.
I need it.
So, hopefully we'll all touch on this one in the future. Again, it is on Game Pass now, so hopefully if this one maybe slipped past the radar last year or in 2018 when it came out, I think.
Yeah, I think
if it passed you by, definitely check it out if you've got the PC Game Pass. So, but yeah, I guess we can. Again, no connection whatsoever, but Randall's been
from one shortish game to another.
Yeah, well, you've been continuing that retro streak.
Yeah, I'm trying to turn this
a little bit here
retro
from a couple
podcast.
Weeks ago.
Yeah,
we're trying our best. You're trying your best, and we'll get there. We'll weasel them in there when we can. But I know you've been playing some Super Punch Out on the SNES on the Switch Online service. So
the gift that keeps on giving, Kevin.
Well, what's your experience with Super Punch Out? Like, retro wise, or at least in the past, and then what's your experience now?
Yeah, so I own this cartridge now, but I also owned it back in the day ish. So I was a kid that grew up with the Sega Genesis, had some exposure to Super Nintendo, remembered renting it from Blockbuster so I could play Donkey Kong Country 2 or whatever else was at the time, but never played Super Punch Out despite playing just a shit ton of the original, Mike Tyson's Punch Out on NES, which I love that game, still love that game. But then in like the early 2000s, when I was still in high school, my buddy gave me his Super Nintendo with a handful of games. One of those
gave you
games,
a pretty nice collection.
I know, seriously. Yeah, now I've amassed a nice collection, thankfully, when retro collecting still wasn't a very big thing, so that's nice. Didn't cost nearly as much as it would cost now.
Yeah, we beat that Punch just by a little bit.
Oh my God, seriously. Yeah.
Seriously. That's a whole nother conversation.
It is. It is that I want to get into, but I'll save that. So early 2000s, I had Super Punch Out as one of those handful of games, and I'll be honest, at that time it did not really grab me. I was used to the original Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and it just seemed kind of like it kind of seemed like a little half-assed at that time compared to what I was used to with a presentation of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, where you had the cool cutscenes and the super memorable music and everything that went into the presentation of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out wasn't quite there for Super Punch-Out. So actually, I got rid of that game at the time. I sold it, which is not something I usually do at all. But I did for that.
That's actually really interesting because I feel like Super Punch Out, almost, at least in my eyes, almost the only thing it's bringing to the table above the original is the presentation, these huge sprites the bosses you're fighting and stuff. But that's just interesting because I have always thought that gameplay wise they're very similar, but maybe the presentation on the cutscenes and stuff is lacking.
Right. Although I will say in the NES game there was pretty massive sprites considering what that system should have been capable of doing.
That's true too. Yeah.
Pretty damn impressive still to this day. But that being said, so fast forward a bunch of years to the 3DS and the 3DS eShop, and they started releasing Super Nintendo games on there, and one of them was Super Punch Out, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I really love Punch Out. I want to give this game another shot. It's been over a decade. Let me try to play this again, and then I just got hooked. It was one of my go-to games to just open the 3DS up and let me just play another round against, Gabby J. Let me
much like our Gabby J.
Gabby J.
Can't shut him up.
GJ, as we like to call him.
Yes, that's one of the things I love about this game is a lot of the voiceover work through the Super Nintendo sound chip is just real good. Specifically when they do the countdown when you're down, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's where'd that 5 come from? What's that about? It's a totally different recording or something.
Yeah, Charles Martinet couldn't show up for the 5 recording.
We'll give you 1 through 4. That's under the contract, but otherwise,
yeah.
So back to playing this game. I think what I loved about it, what really stands out to me, and what brings me back, is it feels more kinetic to me than Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Mike Tyson's Punch Out is kind of like this dance that you're playing, right? It's kind of this rote memorization of how the fighters are going to fight, and there's a lot of comfort in that, and once you're good at that and you have it down, it's very satisfying, I'll give it that. But Super Punch Out, there's a little bit more open to interpretation kind of happening in the fights. You can sneak a lot more punches than you can in Mike Tyson's Punch Out. You're not just waiting to react. You can be the person that's being aggressive in a lot of these fights and get away with it. Which I find very satisfying. There's especially in the first couple of circuits, there's 4 circuits total, 3 when you first start, a 4th opens up. But you can get through some of these circuits in a handful of minutes, because you can win some of these early battles in 30 seconds or less if you know what you're doing.
Okay. That's actually pretty interesting because, the original Punch Out, I don't have a ton of experience with either game.
Yeah.
But the original is definitely more dodge, right. Wait for an opening, and then clock the opponent.
Wait for the very specific tell. Something lights up, a glint in his eye or whatever, or he raises his eyebrows a couple of times, and that's when you punch him or whatever. Or you get out of the way and then you punch him. You rinse and repeat. Where I'm not going to say there's none of that here. There is, especially as you get into the harder characters, but there's still a lot of room for interpretation, and I'm still finding myself playing this game now on the Switch, Super Nintendo Switch Online service. I love that it's there. Again, I love the rewind feature because I played that stupid rewind.
Yeah.
Okay, this is right when I got off the mat, so let me go in and instead of ducking this way, I'll duck that way. Boom, there's the punch that knocks him dizzy for a second. Let me load up my super punch because I hit him enough times. That's
a great point.
Too.
Yeah. Do they have the original Punch Out on the NES? I know it's not Mike Tyson's, but do they have the Mr. Dream Punch Out on there?
I feel like maybe yes, but I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I feel like yes.
I think so too, but I'm not sure. But either way, I don't know if it's the same in Super Punch Out. But I know when you got to Mike Tyson or Mr. Dream, it's if they land one punch, you're dead.
You're in bad shape.
And start back from the beginning. So that rewind feature on that, it's I could maybe actually see the end of Punch Out because otherwise I don't have the determination. question. Maybe
But did
when
you
I was
really
a kid.
beat it?
I don't care if I beat it. I just want to see the end.
ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on YouTube then.
And that's kind of where I'm at too, because I've
That's
never been
fair.
able to get past the third circuit, the world circuit. And now I'm kind of using save states and rewind, and I'm not too worried about it because I'm also actively learning how to play the game better as I'm doing so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like this game. I'm finding myself addicted to it again.
Nice.
Nice.
Can you
Yeah.
talk more to, being able to be the aggressor? Like,
Yeah.
are you able to tell when you're able to be the aggressor, I guess? Or is it like there's a chance that there's less of a chance that they'll block you and you just have to decide when to attack? What
It's
is that
probably
like?
both. Yeah, I feel like there's a slightly like the AI is a little bit less likely to block. You still have to be smart about how you're throwing your punches because you've got you can do the body blow or you can do like the uppercut punch, depending from left or right arms. But yeah, I for whatever reason I can find myself like being aggressive where I can kind of almost spam some punches if I'm feeling confident enough, and then one of those times he's not going to block and I'm going to get my punch in, and that might set him dizzy for another punch and then another punch, and then here comes the super punch because my meter filled up the whole way and now he's down on the ground and I can start mashing the punch buttons to gain a little bit of health back too. But yeah, I'm not going to say there's no memorization involved. You're still, over time, you're getting better because you're learning the tells of these boxers. There's still some of that in play. And I will say, one way this game has not aged very well, just like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, is there's some, let's say, stereotypes in play here.
To put it mild.
Yeah.
To put it
Pizza
mildly,
Pasta. If he's still there, I don't know.
Yeesh.
Is Pizza Pasta still there?
I don't think Pizza Pasta is there, but you've got like Bear Hugger from Canada who sips on maple sugar and stuff, and yeah, there's some other a lot worse ones than that.
Yeah, that was a tame one.
Yeah, it's a tame one.
Significantly.
But yeah, it just like something about that gameplay loop just hooks me in more than Mike Tyson's Punch-Out does, and I will stand by that. I don't think it gets its due. It doesn't have as good a music. It does not have as good as presentation. Little Mac does not look like Little Mac, but all those things being said, I still like it more.
Nice.
Did you
What?
ever end up playing the Wii one?
A little bit. For whatever reason, I didn't play that a ton at the time too, and I think that was again just because maybe I wasn't in a Super Punch-Out zone during those days. But I should go back to it. I still own it.
It's got same here, and it's got a very similar presentation to Super Punch-Out,
Yeah.
like the huge sprites and the kind of like wireframe of your Little Mac character or whatever.
Right.
I played just a tiny bit of it as well, but never fully got hooked. But it plays almost exactly the same as
It does.
even the NES Punch-Out. I
Yep.
mean, it's like the same inputs essentially. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I know you've been kind of keeping the retro train rolling
That's all
over
I can
there,
do.
Randall.
Yeah.
And I know you've been playing a little bit of the Sega Ages Virtua Racing as
Yeah.
well. Was that an arcade title originally?
Yes.
Or?
So
okay,
Virtua Racing came out before Daytona USA, and
okay,
so like this was kind of one of the granddaddies of like the arcade racing kind of early 90s scene. It came out originally in 92 by Sega. And then M2, which I love all these M2 ports. M2 is a Japanese developer that does phenomenal work with ports and does a lot of work with Sega to bring their old games into the new and tries to add little features that kind of brings it into the present and some quality of life stuff. Like in this game, they've done a ton of work in this game. So they turned, a 1992 game and put it on a modern platform where it runs now 60 frames per second. It's like got beautiful draw distance. The polygons are super chunky, but it's really clear. It's like this beautiful, like low poly, flat shader, minimalist type of look that I really like quite a bit. It was pretty common during the day, but you're looking on like generally a 4:3 aspect ratio, like old crappy monitor in the arcade versus, looking at a modern TV is a totally different story. So.
yeah. And I mean, to me, like from what I've seen of these games, like they just kind of look like, something like Star Fox or something on Super Nintendo. But if it actually just ran smoothly, or at least a little more smoothly.
Basically, yeah, that type of graphical effect is what we're talking about. Just like made to look very
early
smooth.
polygons.
Yes, very much so. But it's still fun. Like you can tell the roots of what becomes Daytona USA are in this game. Granted, there's only 3 courses, but it's endlessly replayable because I can tell you right now, you're not going to maybe not even beat the first course in the first time you try. Like it takes some doing. It's not easy. This is like meant to be an arcade game that takes your quarters. And they kind of kept that through. You can change the difficulty, but I'm keeping it on the default one. So I still I have not beat the 3rd course, but continuing to try. They also added local multiplayer for up to 8 players on one screen.
Oh, sweet. That's actually awesome.
That's insane. Yeah, that's a thing.
Split those Joy-Cons up, baby.
So I'm like, damn. Like, that's the type of effort M2 puts in these type of things. Like, they didn't have to do that.
They really take these games and, like, keep them as true as possible to their original form in some regards, but modernize them as much as they can while keeping, like, the essence of the original experience there, which is, very, very impressive.
Yep. You can play online 2-player races. There's replays. There's rankings that are online. So I bought it on sale for like $3 or $4, and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally happy with that price. I still need to buy the 32X version because it has more courses, but that's another conversation.
Nice, but yeah, very cool that M2 keeps pumping out all these Sega Ages games onto the Switch, and I think on other consoles as well.
Yeah, but Switch is getting a lot of love from that stuff, and a lot of arcade nostalgia stuff coming out, which I just love it.
Yeah, and they're all like $8 a pop, and again, like you said, they go on sale pretty frequently. So
yeah, they do.
Definitely worth checking out. So
I totally think so.
Nice. Well, I know we had one more game to talk about tonight.
Speaking of ports.
Yeah. Although a slightly different variety, but yeah, maybe board game to video game. But why don't you take it away with a little Catan, DJ?
Yeah. So Catan, based off the board game Settlers of Catan, is now available on Switch, baby.
Catan. You say Catan, I say Catan.
Catano,
I don't know.
Catano.
I thought I've always heard Settlers of Catan, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, we're going to call it Catan for the rest of this episode.
Continue. Yes.
It's Gris and Catan.
There you
go. Pursuing pronunciation.
There you go.
I quit.
Catan is a basic resource management game where, the world is, this island or series of islands that's just made of all these tiles that each tile represents a different resource, and you pick different tiles to start on, and you're just trying to build up your civilization by gathering the resources around you and trying to develop your civilization faster than the other people. And so like with many board games, I think I prefer having this implemented as a video game, because I think something that happens very often with my friends and I in board games is a bit of an uncertainty on how to interpret some of the rules.
Yeah, the rules are up for interpretation. And I guess it's worth mentioning, too, at the top that, like, this is a game, Settlers of Catan, that we have played periodically. It's probably been a little while, but, like, we used to play this game quite a bit, like, when you lived with Rob and Rosie, DJ, and, like, just a game that we've played a lot in the board game form.
Quite a handful of times, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people have played this game.
Even still, assuming that the way that the video game enforces the rules is the way that they're meant to be enforced,
right,
in the actual board game, there were some things that I was maybe misinterpreting or didn't know I could do in a certain way. Like, if you're familiar with the game, like there's these development cards you can buy, and certain ones you can actually play before you begin your turn and roll the dice. I thought that everyone's turn had to start with rolling the dice, but apparently there are some cards you can play, like the knight, before you roll the dice.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was like the order of play. I thought rolling the dice was just the. Huh.
Yeah, and I'm with you though, DJ.
Wow.
Like, I love this concept of like, again, there's so many times where like a rule comes up and it's like, wait, how do we interpret this rule? So I love the idea of like the game knows, and it will just even with like, you know, we talked about in previous weeks Slay the Spire a bunch, and like all of these cards, like if we were actually playing that with actual cards and holding them in our hands and laying them out, it's like every time I play this card, you add 2 more attack. It's like there's no way to keep track of all that stuff.
A la Magic the Gathering, same deal.
Yeah. This is a slightly different scenario, but still just like no gray area, and I love that.
Yeah, and I think the gameplay is very simplistic too. Like, you know, you have one button to control, you know, rolling the dice and ending your turn. You have another button that, you know, brings up the menu of what you can buy with the resources you already have. Nice. And there's another button to bring up a menu for trading with other players or the general bank. And it's not very complicated. It's
just a really cleanly designed, like, it just looks nice. It's got pleasant music. It's not like bringing a bunch to the table presentation wise.
It doesn't
need to. And it's like the perfect game to throw a podcast on. I know you said you have some trouble finding some online games. It does have online multiplayer.
It does. That's actually the only multiplayer it has. But that kind of makes sense because local multiplayer wouldn't really be feasible with this game.
You have to kind of keep your hand a secret and stuff like that. So
that makes sense.
If you're keeping your hand a secret, then, you know, you can't all be sharing the same screen, and, you know, trading and everything would make passing a single Switch console around not really ideal.
It'd be cool if they could let you have your own Switch, though, like do a local multiplayer where everyone has their own Switch type of thing. Like maybe that.
Yeah. And I think they do offer that if everybody owns the game, but I don't think it's one of those where like, if one person owns the game, everybody can mooch off that and play a little Catan.
Right.
Catan.
DS download play.
Yeah.
But what's nice is the one I bought on the Switch, at least it comes with one of the expansions that you can, you know, that exists in the real world, the Seafarers expansion. And there's actually a campaign mode, and it plays out all the different scenario types you can play out in the board game. Like, it'll suggest like set up the board like this, and, you know, enforce these rules. Like, there were at least a dozen different levels in the campaign just of different scenarios.
And what does that Seafarers expansion add? Because for what it's worth, I mean, I know you picked this up on sale. Well, I was gonna say, like, I know you picked this up on sale for $10, but it's normally $20. But I think like the board game of Catan is like $40.
Oh, and then
at least 30. The expansion's probably another 20 or 30.
Least,
I mean, for even $20, like, if you're into this game, and especially if you maybe have some friends that have it on their Switch, or I believe this is on other platforms as well.
I mean, if everyone got it like while it was on sale for $10, like if you and 3 other friends got it,
that's like the cost of the board game,
right? Yeah, but all of you would have a copy of it, and you could also play it online with other people too. Like,
and for what it's worth, DJ booted this up right before we started recording today and like showed me real quick. I didn't play a full game or anything, but just how streamlined the process was. It was like, this game is going to go by so much faster than a game of Catan would be sitting around a table. And there is something to be said. I love playing like a tangible game with real cards and a real dice to roll and all that stuff. That is cool. But like, man, I really love the idea, though, of just like enforce the rules properly, no gray area, and expedite the process. I think there's a lot to be said about these board games on consoles.
And even just little things like if you were to lose a piece in real life, that'd fuck you up completely.
Yeah, I lost one of the orange houses. So now like this is always, we have this extra blue one that's like you can use if you want. There's just a lot of things that go into having the tangible product. Even like the map itself, you know, you're locking these like hexagon tiles into a grid that they're always kind of like bent and warped a little bit, and like it doesn't sit flush on the table. Like, it's still cool to have, and but man, I just love the immediacy of that digital experience. So I'm definitely curious to check out more of these. Like I know you and I played for like 5 seconds of Pandemic's available on Xbox Game Pass, which is another game, and I think it does offer multiplayer, but not with one controller. I think we all had to have controllers.
Right.
But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by this whole I don't know, genre, I guess.
I'm super interested in, pursuing any other board games that come up on sale in the eShop. So
yeah,
should check out Monopoly on NES. It runs pretty good too. It's my first experience with this, and it was kind of the same thing at that point. Like, oh yeah, let's really roll through a Monopoly experience that's not 3 or 4 hours. Let's do this.
Yeah,
watch the dog jump between the different. Yeah.
It's a good point. That's a good point. Even back to that day, because they've been trying board games on video game systems for
forever.
A long time. So, and I got to think that a lot of these games would probably work a little better on PC when you have a mouse and you can kind of click on the different elements and whatever.
I can see that.
But something like Catan, it's like the interface was just really smooth, really clean. Like it's not going to let you make any mistakes. Like, I accidentally clicked A. It's like you have to hold it down for like a second and it like fills up a semi or a full circle, like to be like, okay, yeah, you do want to roll the dice or you do want to end your turn or whatever it is. So, and I'm curious to see, like I picked up a while ago, like games like Light Fingers or For the King. Like these are games that are kind of like designed around a tabletop experience, but like specifically designed with like, hey, we don't have the limitations of like everyone has to have their little like Mancala beads to count up the different damage points. It's like this is all done in the computer or in the the AI or whatever. It's doing all the math for you and all the circumstances. What I don't know, just breaking down all these different scenarios for you. Yeah, and I'm definitely curious to play stuff like that. I played a little bit of For the King, but definitely curious to play some Light Fingers because it seems like it's almost like you have some agency, like you're actually controlling a character on the map, like physically on the map. You're like kind of getting through these dungeons, but then it also has these just like regular tabletop board gaming rules. So I don't know. I'm definitely intrigued by this genre.
Heck yeah,
yeah, and intrigued. I want to see more. Not just ports of actual board games, but I want to see some new ideas. So.
I just like that Mancala call out. That was really good too. I wonder how many people know what Mancala is.
It's a good game. It
is a good game.
We'll talk about it next week.
There you go.
The podcast. But speaking of next week, although I can't say that we'll get to it right away, but I know DJ, he took up our New Year's challenge. On the holiday episode, we kind of said, hey, we all loved Chasm, and we threw the ball in DJ's court and said, hey, you got to play Chasm, and sure enough, he already beat it, and
he's throwing it back.
99.1%ed it. So why don't you throw it right back at one of us or all of us?
Once I complete it, I get to issue a challenge to you guys. So I'm gonna throw it back to you, Kevin.
But I gotta play a game.
This is a game you own.
Okay. I don't have to spend any money.
You don't have to spend any money, but I don't think you would prioritize this game. I want you to play Titanfall 2.
Ooh. This was a recent PlayStation Plus game, right?
Yes.
So, Randall, did you pick that up?
I owned it.
Did you download it?
So I still have it. Yes.
So that's something. I don't want to rope you into this with me.
No,
but,
I
also
own it.
Also rope me into this too because this is exactly the type of game that I want to play. But
let's go down with this ship together. Yeah, yes. Let's do it. So, are you able to play? Do you know, DJ? Are you able to play split screen? Like if John were to come over and we were to do a campaign together
tonight.
Yeah.
Ooh,
we'll definitely check this one out soon because I know I was able to download it via PlayStation Plus. Seems like Randall already picked it up
on Xbox
at some point.
I mean, and John,
DJ owns
if
it.
Split screen doesn't work, you could always come over, man.
And John lives right across the street from me, so
already got a mandate.
Oh man. Well, yeah. Now that DJ's mandated what we need to play, I think we can wrap up the episode for this week. Thanks for tuning in as always. And if you want to find more episodes, you can find us at pursuingpixels.com. We're also on Twitter, Instagram. You can email us at pursuingpixels@gmail.com if you have a question or comment or maybe a game you want us to check out or review.
Talk to us.
yeah, hit us up, and otherwise we'll catch you next week. Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And I've gotten to the point in the game where I have actually wait.
I just had a little rasp in my throat there. DJ was mocking
You
me.
just started miming on either side of me. Got to reset for that. What was I saying?
So sorry. So sorry.